Go ahead and call a meeting to order, our January the 23rd, 2024. Trying to get used to saying that 2024, but getting there. But I'd like to welcome you all tonight here. And first off, there's only one person in here. I said, man, it's going to be easy tonight. But I'm sure glad you all came out. You know, it gets lonely here if we don't have someone to show up. So we really appreciate you all coming out. And we also would like to welcome the folks that are watching by way of internet. We also have it on YouTube now, our meeting. So if you want to look at us again, go to YouTube. Okay. Okay, we'll move on here to the calendar. And I wanted to mention about Downtown Waynesville Commission has promoted our Ice Fest Friday night. You want to say anything about that, Ben?
Cold weather.
Let's just pray that it's not a rain fest, right?
That's right. There are 19 meetings.
Yeah.
Have a lot of sculptures.
So how many sculptures are you having? 19. Wow.
How big are they?
They are only double block. The others are single block. They both be about 3.5 foot tall. Flat mountain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Over here, Friday afternoon, we start setting them out. And then
What time does that start?
5.
5 o'clock. Okay, so everybody put that on your calendar and come out and see.
Saturday is the Ice Fest in Maggie.
Yeah, the Ice Fest in Maggie Valley's on Saturday. That's there. But anyway, we'll move on. Well, I still have something that, oh yeah, I've got Tuesday, February the 13th will be our next town council meeting. Okay, we move along here. We've got public comment. We only have one person here tonight, so we'll trip him. Alex? You know the rules.
2015. I had to ask for the public comment. This is the first public comment I've ever made since 2015.
I may have to tell you the rules then.
I know. I'm guessing I have 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm a newcomer, a new old comer. Over the last 2 weeks, I've been somewhat distressed. And I apologize. I'm a little bit shooken tonight. I just left one of my apartments caught on fire. Hazelwood right before I came here, so I'm having to read this off the phone.
What was it caught on fire?
The triplex behind Triangle Automotive.
Uh-huh.
She was cooking pork belly and she went to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
so everybody's fine, including the cat. But
Yeah.
It was an ordeal. But over the last 2 weeks, I've been somewhat distressed at the comments made by Hazelwood Merchant regarding the Hazelwood Boosters, regarding the Hazelwood Boosters and our events affecting her business. Last year, the Hazelwood Boosters had 5 events: 3 cruising car shows, 2 of which were canceled early or canceled fully because of rain, Hazelween, and the Christmas parade. Cruise in Saturday take place Saturdays towards the end of summer. 6 to 9, I believe, are those. Hazelween, Saturday before Halloween's 5 to 7. Christmas parade's always held on the first Sunday of December at 3 o'clock. And I give you all these dates and times because the merchant that spoke about the boosters affecting her business is not open past 4 o'clock through the week, 3 o'clock on Saturday, is not open at all on Sunday. And we do that by design so it doesn't affect business. And the ones that are open, namely Amici's, we really try to cater to. The merchant that spoke last meeting also said that there was a lack of communication. We go down personally, talk to every merchant before and after, at least a month before, so they plan road closures. And the whole mission of the Hazelwood Boosters is to promote Hazelwood Main Street and the surrounding community. So the last thing we're trying to do is harm merchant business. So
Thank you, Alex. I'm sure things will work out.
it will.
All right, we'll move right along. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Anyone? If not, I ask for a motion that they be approved.
So moved, Mayor.
A motion,
Second.
second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, show like sign. Okay, consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
They got a motion,
Second.
second. Anthony, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, show like sign. Okay, we'll move on to, we got some presentations here tonight, and, the North Carolina Main Street Rural Planning Center. Jesse or Beth, you want to speak on that behalf? How about both of you speak on that behalf?
Every year, the North Carolina Main Street and Rural Planning Center allows communities within the program to designate a Main Street champion every year, which is just our opportunity to recognize an individual that's making a difference to our program at the local level. And so we have our Main Street champion we'd like to present tonight for the 2024 year, and he will be honored officially at the state conference, which will be in Goldsboro in March. I'll turn it over to Jesse and give him the honors.
Thank you, Board. There are many employees in the town of Waynesville that offer their assistance without hesitation, and they give it away freely whenever we ask. They give themselves to the town and this community in a way that fills us all up with pride, and they don't wonder if it's their job to help or if there's somebody else that can do it. And the only question that they most often ask is, how can I help? Jody Nichols, if you want to come up here, he is a model of this character. And throughout his tenure with the town, he has consistently offered to assist wherever he's needed, no matter who asks and how oftentimes people ask him. Following the town's appointment of the Downtown Waynesville Commission, Beth and I relied on Jody time and time again to help us in making downtown Waynesville the best downtown in North Carolina. There were some instances where Beth and I would have conversations about whether or not it seemed like we were taking advantage of Jody's kindness and his willingness to help us. But in most of those cases, he was the only one that would pick the phone up and offer to help, and especially offer to help as kindly and happily as he did. Following the appointment of the Downtown Waynesville Commission, and in the months leading up to that appointment, there were events to be held. We had to set them up, heavy things to be moved, after hours tasks complete, and last minute problems that required the willingness of hands to fix. That was one of the greatest things that we got out of Jody over the past 3 years, were his hands. And it didn't really matter what we needed help with. If we needed a human body and somebody that was willing to assist, he was there. Beth and I needed help, and whenever we found ourselves in a position where we needed somebody, especially last minute, we always knew that we could call Jody, and we know that still to this day. He responds always with a positive attitude of a passionate member of a much larger Waynesville community, because he is a great citizen of Waynesville and an excellent employee of the town. We nominated Jody to be designated by the North Carolina Department of Commerce Main Street and Rural Planning Center as a Main Street champion, primarily because of his assistance he offered to the town's Main Street program, but more importantly, because of his love for Main Street and his town in its entirety. Jody embodies the true definition of a public servant, and we're all very proud that his nomination got accepted by the state. I want to thank Jody. Jody will accompany us to the conference that we will be going to in Goldsboro, which is in March 14th. And he will be presented with the actual award here, but I wanted to give him something in recognition from the town and Beth and I in particular. And so Jody, here is this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. We've got a really special employee with Jody, and I really hope that he decides to hang around for a long time.
Thank you. And thank your family for coming.
I was gonna say, if there's some
Yes.
VIPs in the audience that we haven't been introduced to.
I've got my wife, Jennifer, My oldest daughter's with them, my youngest daughter's rooming. Of course, part of my work and
Yeah. But before you go, I would like to say something else that came to my mind while you were up there is, I get a call every once in a while, once a year about this little man who goes over and, I can't remember the street over there, but it's off Shelton Street over there, but anyway, he's disabled. And so I called David Kelly, and between David Kelly and you coordinated and volunteers, and these guys went over there and they cleaned this man's property up spotless, mowed, spotless and everything. So there's more than just what he just received. There's what you did for that little man over there that's disabled. That means a lot to me and this board also. So thank you all for that. Okay, we'll move on to Bearwise presentation. We got someone here going to,
We do.
Ashley Hobbs. Oh, there you are, dear. Did you bring one of the pets with you, a bear or anything like that?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
She's not gonna feed them.
okay. We thank you so much for coming out. I know John was coordinating with you about, coming out and giving us, because I actually walked out of my back. I live in Auburn Park. I walked out of my garage one night, got halfway out and heard this grunt, looked around, and the bear was tearing down my bird feeder.
Mhm.
So I know exactly what, it's spooky. So thank you for coming out, and please
Absolutely.
go ahead and present your presentation.
so Mayor,
Yeah.
I live 150 yards from here, and this picture is this rascal is proceeding to walk up my driveway.
So that's one of your pets.
Yeah. So when Doug Minchover had written us back in June, this picture I went back and looked happened a year ago this past June. So when my experience was pretty fresh with this guy, and when he brought up the possibility of the town participating in the Bearwise program, and then he worked to coordinate with Ashley here from the National North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission. Is that correct?
Mhm.
And so Ashley's going to talk to us about a program that they sponsor that helps communities like Waynesville who have close relationships with bears. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Doug, for reaching out to us, and looking forward to Ashley's presentation.
All right.
Floor is yours.
Well, thank you all so much for having me out today. Was there some equipment missing? Maybe I should turn it on.
If it won't put through.
Oh, there we go. I just needed a minute. As he said, my name is Ashley Hobbs. I do work for the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. That's your state wildlife agency. My official title is Special Projects Biologist. It's a really vague title. That means a whole bunch of nothing to most people. But what I do day to day is I'm in charge of Buncombe County. I take all the human-wildlife interaction calls for Buncombe County, which keeps me pretty busy year-round. But I also run our Bearwise program for the state on a state level. So I'm a bit localized, a bit state as well, but I've always kind of worked in District 9 since I started with the commission. Today I want to talk to you guys about Bearwise communities. I want to float the idea out there of perhaps the town of Waynesville becoming a Bearwise community and taking those steps to better coexist with bears. We're going to be really brief today, but we could certainly, really dive into this. You guys heard of Bearwise before? Just out of curiosity? Awesome. Then I'll keep it really brief. Bearwise started out in just the southeastern U.S., so we only dealt with black bears. Thank the Lord. That's all we need. We shared ways to be proactive and preventing conflicts, shared ways to address conflicts that people are already experiencing when it comes to living alongside bears. And we encourage community-wide initiatives to keep bears wild, keep people safe. Bearwise deals in science-based information only, and it's consistent as well, so that if you are at your beach house in Florida and you're at your mountain house up in North Carolina, you're gonna get the same messaging on how to coexist with bears no matter where you're at. No old wives' tales thrown in there, no guesswork. So we started that in the southeastern US. It rolled out in 2018. We have a wonderful website, bearwise.org, for again that consistent science-based information. And other states in the US kind of started looking over at us and saying, well, how can we do that too? So Bearwise did expand in 2021 to become a nationally recognized program. It's housed under the American Fish and Wildlife Association. And we have, I think it's 47 states who have paid the fee to participate in Bearwise, and they use Bearwise as their primary education tool for educating their residents about bears. So that's kind of where we're at with Bearwise. But we do have that community recognition aspect of it. And basically what that means is that a community comes together and they agree to follow the 6 Bearwise basics in their community. They agree to really make a concerted effort to coexist with bears. So they can achieve recognition status by following a few different steps. I will note that there are only 2 states in the country right now with a recognition program. So it is a pretty tight-knit community that we have. Florida's been doing some version of this even before Bearwise was a thing. We started in 2018 when the program was officially launched, and we have quite a few Bearwise recognized communities, businesses, outdoor recreation areas, and campuses as well. So in our state, we have our own unique set of rules. They look a little bit different to what Florida would require. Florida has different funding mechanisms. They have different opportunities for people to get things like bear-resistant trash cans. So we take a bit of a different approach. I did send a document along if you'd like to see these steps laid out a bit more. Excuse me, but step 1, you guys can check that one off. So reach out to your state agency and kind of just inquire about becoming a Bearwise community. See what that might entail. And I also like to throw in here, I like to do a community-wide presentation just to go through Bearwise, the Bearwise basics, and really get everybody on the same page of what exactly Bearwise is and how you can be Bearwise. After that, we usually get together and we meet, you'll meet with me, to define action items. There are some requirements to become a Bearwise community. So we'll talk about how you guys can reach those requirements. Do we need to add anything else to the list that maybe you guys are already experiencing conflict with that's not on our requirements, or maybe you think could become an issue further along down the road. After we kind of come up with our action items, we establish how we're going to enforce those new changes. It's one thing to say, hey, we're Bearwise now, we love bears, we're going to coexist with bears. It's another thing to actually carry that out, particularly on a town-wide level. After that, you guys are expected to serve as an ambassador for Bearwise messaging. Oftentimes, this is done with a committee of local residents who love bears, want to teach people about bears, wants to reach out to other businesses and aspects of the community just to bring that Bearwise messaging front and center. And then we just check in annually, just make sure everything's going smoothly, see if there's anything else we need to introduce, making sure that what we have introduced is effective, and just sort of do that yearly maintenance. The community does get signage. You can see that in the picture. Street signage usually that you guys can use however you see fit, but it officially brands you as a Bearwise community. So let's get into the requirements. One thing about this program is it's super flexible. We understand that the town of Highlands, for example, very different than the town of Waynesville. There's different types of residents, different types of tourism levels, all kinds of differences. So we want to make it a flexible program where you do need to meet a certain requirement, but there's different ways that you can do that. The 2 main requirements for becoming recognized is you need to address wildlife feeding. This could be a bird feeder, this could be that pile of corn someone puts out for the squirrels or the deer, or it could be those people that hand the bears cookies off the back porch. We need some way to address that. Right now, I looked through y'all's code of ordinances, just an initial glance. I don't see anything. We had a real problem in Waynesville with people feeding bears. There would be a safety issue or there would be property damage occurring. There's no way that we can address that because there's no state regulation against that. There's no town ordinance as well. So something to think about. So we could do a rule that says if you have a wildlife feeder out, you experience bear activity, you got to bring it in for 2 weeks until. We could go the opposite end of the spectrum and have those ordinances like I discussed. Let's say you can't place anything that causes a safety issue for people, pets, livestock, or the bear itself, because bears can be put in danger by feeding. And you also, if there's property damage as well. That's kind of what we aim for with an ordinance. We can also shoot the middle and say you can only feed wildlife seasonally when bears are least active. So there's a bit of wiggle room there. When it comes to trash, there's two main options. There is an example in the town of Highlands, who is a bear-wise community. They were the first in the country, first town to achieve recognition. They require all of their residents to have a bear-resistant trash can. But that's expensive. Maybe that's unattainable for Waynesville. So we could look at requiring trash to be stored inside a bear-resistant location, container, something like that until collection day. And then changing your curb, which I think you guys already have in your ordinances more or less. But then changing your ordinances to say you can only put your trash to the curb the day of collection, never the night before. And then we can, again, mix and match these if we need to. They don't need to be all from one part of the spectrum here. And again, we want it to be attainable so that residents of Waynesville are willing to participate because it's an achievable goal. The other thing that I have our communities do is try to track bear activity that's reported. Usually, again, this goes through the committee of residents, works really well. Can kind of help you guys gauge success too, see if we need to do any tweaking, see if there's any part of town that's really experiencing a lot of issues. You'll see up here this document. This is a document solely for bear-wise communities, and it's based off a stoplight. Green is normal behavior. Yellow is concerning behavior that can be addressed through securing attractants. Red is, okay, we've got a problem here and the Wildlife Commission needs to step in. We need to take immediate action. And you can see it lists some of the examples of those behaviors, and then it gives you an action item, tells you what to do. Okay, you've experienced a red behavior. These are your next steps. You see here next to it, I have a website. I make these websites myself for neighborhoods if they don't have one, but Town of Highlands and Town of Montreat have both. Well, Montreat's still working on it. The Town of Highlands has put in a whole bear-wise section on their website with the reporting tool so that they can keep track of those reports. So here is a little bit of a breakdown of our currently recognized communities. You see that there is a bit of a mix and match going on here with how they've met requirements. So again, just really stressing that this can be flexible and it looks different depending on the community that we're working with. Here's the example of Highlands. Again, Highlands was the first town status. They, again, require bear-resistant carts for all of their residents. They have also converted all of their downtown commercial carts and dumpsters to bear-proof or added locks to make them bear-resistant. They do have the ordinance, as I discussed, prohibiting the intentional feeding of bears. There's a danger that's caused or property damage. And they have what they call themselves the Bear Task Force, BEAR Task Force. And they are charged with consistently educating residents throughout the year on the bear-wise basics, giving them reminders, hosting events, all kinds of good stuff. And again, they have that activity reporting tool on their website for residents. So that's kind of an example of how it could look in Waynesville. There are some barriers to recognition when we're trying to go through this process and set up the requirements and the action items. One is income disparities. Sometimes people just don't have the means to go out and buy a bear-resistant trash can. There are other options, and we need to present those early on so that people don't think that they're left out of this equation or they can't participate, because they absolutely can. Also, lack of unifying structure. It really helps if this is backed by the town council. Having that unifying structure to kind of hold the Bearwise program together in Waynesville would really kind of help cement it and keep it going in perpetuity. And then varying perceptions of black bears can be complicated too. Some people love bears to death, is what I say. They feed them to the detriment of their neighbors, themselves, their pets, and the bears themselves as well. On the opposite end of that spectrum, there are people who are terrified of bears. If a bear shows up in their yard, they just want to kill the bear and be done with it. And then, of course, most of us are in the middle of that spectrum, kind of at the healthy respect. So we are going to have to deal with some varying perspectives of people who don't think Bearwise is enough to address issues and people who think Bearwise is overkill. We don't have issues because the bears are great. We want to see them everywhere. You see here, this is a bear-wise community, and Duke Energy is feeding the bear right outside the neighborhood. So there are some challenges along the way, but I think we've got enough experience to kind of jump those hurdles as they come. And again, it's not just for communities, businesses, colleges. It could be elementary schools, outdoor recreation areas as well. We can add more pieces to this puzzle in Waynesville as we go along to kind of make this bigger, broader area of people committed to Bearwise. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I just wanted to kind of, again, float the idea out there of what it may look like. I would say if this is not something that's attractive to you guys, or if it seems like it's too much for right now, would encourage you guys to look into at least wildlife feeding and maybe buttoning up some of the trash ordinances in the meantime, just to kind of have those in place in case things were to get to a point where we needed somebody to step in. And I'm happy to go through that process with you as well.
Chuck, you have any question?
Loads, actually, but I'm not sure that we need to talk about it right.
Okay, Julie?
Again, I've got lots of questions. One would be, how many bear human encounters, how many humans have been attacked by bears in West North Carolina over the last 5 years?
Over the last 5 years, it's probably, off the top of my head, 6. That doesn't include Smoky Mountain National Park because they're federal, so they're not in our jurisdiction, if that makes sense. Most of those are in Buncombe County, however.
And how many family pets have been?
I could not give you that number. It's too many to count.
Okay.
Yep.
And what is the comparison against the bears invading and going into family homes versus coyotes, which are very prevalent here in West North Carolina?
So the great
Coyotes. So I just know that we just lost 2 calves within the township of Waynesville that were eaten by coyotes yesterday.
So one of the great things about Bearwise is if you're practicing Bearwise, it benefits you for a multitude of species, whether it's coyotes and foxes or it's, rodents. If you're securing trash and other attractants, in the case of livestock, there's a lot of information for Bearwise on how to properly secure livestock. If you're following the Bearwise basics, you're going to be better protected against other species as well that a lot of people are concerned about.
Thank you so much.
Actually, I do have one or two. We just purchased new trash cans for the town, but I was wondering about public trash cans. Are those a problem also?
They can be.
At our parks, that sort of thing. And what kind of expense are you looking at as far as bear resistant trash cans like that?
So it depends. It depends on if you are going for something that looks really nice and blends in with the town really well. You probably get those style that you may see in the national parks where it's big metal and it's cemented into the ground. Those are pretty pricey. Those can be $1,000 plus depending on where you get them from. But you could go many different routes. You could build trash can enclosures that people would have to open with a carabiner or something like that, put their trash in and close it. Or the bear resistant options that are commercially available look more like a residential can. So not necessarily an eyesore, but not as pretty as the metal cans. And those can run anywhere from $200 to $400, depending on the models and the gadgets and gizmos that come with it.
And who is your counterpart in Haywood County?
So I'm the only biologist in the state assigned to a single county. That's because I have to deal with Asheville, and that's enough for one person. But essentially, we have our state broken up into districts. So you have a district biologist. You're in District 9. His name is Justin McVeigh. He and I work together every day almost.
Thank you.
John, you have it?
It just seems to me that I've lived here pretty much my whole life and never saw a bear. And then one afternoon in June, one walks up my driveway on the way to finishing off the bird feeder of my neighbor. It seems to me that the activity that encounters that we have with bears seem to be on the rise. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So of course we have an increasing people population, right? But our bear population in our mountain region is increasing by 3 to 5% each year still. Now that can be expedited in more urban areas where there's trash in the bird feeders and all the extra calories on the landscape that can increase reproductive rate. So if I had to sum it up, I would say don't wait until you are having lots of issues. Once you start getting all those calls coming in about bears, and in the summer it's all bears all the time, people are out talking about bears and they all have their pictures and things like that, then we're getting to a point where we may have to play catch up. I would much rather be proactive with this with you guys, save you guys the headache later on, save your residents the headache later on, just because I work in Asheville. So I see where it can go if we don't take proactive measures.
Ashley, you have a question?
No, I live on the Waynesville Country Club and the bears come down the creek all the time. We
Mhm.
see bears all the time. So I think we're gonna have lots more
Yeah.
questions.
Trash, bird feeders, either of those more of a problem?
I'd say they're pretty equal. Once you start having bears in town, you'll see that they might come for the trash and stick around for the bird feeders. Trash can depend on what's inside of it, but a bird seed has really high calorie content. Big jumbo 7-pound bird seeder has 20,000 calories worth of bird seed in it. So for a bear, that's a week's worth in the summer. That's a day's worth in the winter when they're packing on the pounds for torpor. So it's a no-brainer why they stick around. Why, if you can go to McDonald's every day and have it easy, why would you go home and cook a full roast dinner?
But that was an answer I got, back, it's been a couple of years ago when that happened to me. But when the neighbors, they all said, well, you need to call the Wildlife Commission. So I called the Wildlife Commission because it was making pretty routine in our area there. And his answer was, tell everybody to take their bird feeders down.
Wow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So little changes like that can make a big difference. Bears do pass down those learned behaviors like accessing a bird feeder or a trash can. They pass it down to the next generation. So it kind of snowballs over time. So that's why I say be proactive about it. Don't kick the can down the road just because it's not so bad right now. Let's take care of it before it gets to be a big issue. And I'll be here. Got lots of resources for you guys. I think next step, if you were interested in pursuing this, would be for us to get together and have a little bit of a more intensive meeting, talk about actual things that we may be able to attain in Waynesville, and then present the idea if we decide to move forward, present Bearwise to the community as a whole with a big program or something like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming out and educating us.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Thank you.
Couldn't we put something like on our utility on the back side of it or something? Yeah, about some of the things, the no-nos about the bird feeders and kinds of things like that. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I just gave you a job. Thank you so much for the volunteer. Okay. Yes, I'm just cutting it to you. We'll move along here to new business, and we got a budget amendment for Haywood County Arts Council grant award. Misty would like to come and speak to us on that behalf. And also, do you have your new employee with you?
My new employee.
How about inviting her up to introduce her to the board if she's not bashful?
She's a little bashful. She
That's
just
okay.
started yesterday.
She's been around her mom. She's not bashful. Yeah.
This is Taylor Garland. She's new assistant finance director. Excited to have her.
Taylor, it was so nice. I actually found out from your mom. I had went down to pay some taxes in Clyde there, and your mom was telling me about, coming to work for you. So we're excited to have you, on behalf of all this board right here. We welcome you as an employee to the town of Waynesville. Thank you.
And you're certified public accountant?
Yep. Okay, Misty, we'll quit embarrassing your head.
This budget amendment is just for, two Haywood County Arts Council grants that, Beth received for downtown. One for 5,000, to go towards the mural, and then 5,707 for the Haywood Heritage.
Okay. We don't mind those things like that right there. Anybody have any questions for Misty? Okay, Julia?
No, sir.
Hank? John?
No, sir.
I move we approve the budget amendment as presented by Ms.
All right, we got a motion.
Second.
Second, Anthony, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So like sign. Okay, Mr. Misty, thank you so much. Okay, we move on to old business. Rob and I, we're
That's
old
right.
business. ain't we?
Old business.
Okay, this is a CDBG one grant engineering contract. Would you catch us up on that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At your last meeting, you fulfilled the requirement to select an engineering firm based on North Carolina statutes that require that you consider their expertise for a particular service. And then a second step would be to negotiate a contract. You chose McGill and Associates at your past meeting to be the engineer for the community development block grant infrastructure project that we'll be conducting on Sawyer Street. And we worked with them on a contract. It wasn't a very difficult contract because the project budget establishes what the contract price will be. That price adds up to $156,468. They'll be doing the design. They'll be doing carrying out bidding for the town and the inspection of the project as it is constructed. And that contract's before you for approval.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Rob concerning this?
No, sir.
If so, I would think, you guys have any questions for Rob?
I'll
Okay.
make a motion to approve a $156,468 contract to carry out engineering services for the town's CDBG one contract.
Okay. We got a- got a second. Chuck, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, still like sign. So you're still on the podium here, my friend, CDBG one grant administration contract.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The companion contract to the engineering contract is for grant administration. Again, that price is set out in the CDBG budget, which I've included in your agenda. That budget is $76,462. If you had the time to look through the contract, you'd see just how much paperwork is involved in the administration of the grant. It's just truly mind-boggling what we have to do just to put in 1,400 feet of sewer. But again, the administrative division of McGill and Associates was the company selected by the board at your previous meeting. This contract is again a lump sum contract. We recommend it to you.
Okay. Again, any questions for Rob? Anyone?
No, sir.
Okay, and I will ask for a motion to approve the $76,462 contract to carry out grant administration for the town's CDBG one contract.
So moved.
Got a motion with Julia,
Second.
second with Chuck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So aye. Okay. Bids for finance of fire department renovation.
This is the real reason that Misty is here tonight. We've been working for probably almost 6 months on a design to renovate the old meeting room in the in Hazelwood's Town Hall, for offices for both finance and fire. There'll be 2 offices for fire, and they'll use those offices until such time as they move to fire station number 2. And at that time, that'll be overflow, offices for the finance department. The low bid was that from PBI, and that bid is $131,343.71. We have $150,000 budgeted. I would remind you that there'll be about $35,000 in furniture involved in furnishing this area. And then that includes a new conference room, a finance director's office with conference table, furniture for our new grantsman, and furniture for Taylor. So that totals to about $166,343, and it leaves a balance of $16,343. Misty believes that we can get that money between the fire department's budget and the finances budget. We can get that overage from the operating budget. Okay. So you won't need a budget. Okay. So this bid is before you for acceptance.
Yeah. What about is there any changes to the sleeping quarters for the Hazelwood Fire Department, or is that still?
They would be able to use these 2 offices for bunk rooms.
Yeah, because I knew that was
Yes, these would provide the needed ADA accessible spaces that the second fire station doesn't have. We've never been in compliance because our bunk rooms can only be used for 1 set. These are two individual offices that could be used on the short term for bunk room and that way both sections could serve in fire station 2 together.
Yeah, I didn't know if you could switch the plans or something to make that work out for better sleeping for them.
No, it does.
Yeah.
So I need a little bit of clarity
I do
about,
too. Thank you.
Thank
Anthony.
you.
You go ahead, then I'm.
about the $35,000 budget for the furnishing of the space. What space is that referring to?
That's furniture for the finance director, for the 2 finance offices, for the conference room, which is a conference table for 6. It's furniture for new grantsman and the assistant finance director.
So all this work is being done down at the fire and finance.
That's correct.
And we are rejecting the bid for the second floor.
That's correct.
Town hall.
Due to lack of.
Don't you have any questions?
I'm glad that Anthony clarified that, because this has nothing to do with any transfer from this building to that building next door. This is 100% just on the building, which I know it as a substation.
Now, we do have a recommendation that has nothing to do with this bid, which is to move the Downtown Waynesville Association over to the City Hall and move Mr. Hollingshead's business over here so that DWC can be closer to Jesse and Candace. And you're welcome to comment on that.
I'm
We
going
will.
to comment on that because I'm really curious about that, because you're going to move an association, the Downtown Commission, to a building that does not have an elevator. There's no elevator over there, and so
That's correct.
we're as much as the Downtown Waynesville Commission moves and does their stuff. You're going to move. Who's going to move their stuff from that second floor down, and then relocating the? And Jesse, you can raise your hand. I'll get to you here in just a second here. But I mean, how is that all going to work? And who's going to move all their stuff? And how is this a better fit for our employees about changing the finance department's one thing, but now changing from next door to here, how is that a better fit? And why is it a better fit?
Come on up. It's a good question.
Most of the downtown Waynesville Commission stuff is in the basement currently across the street. There's not a whole lot of walk-in traffic. I supervise Beth and the downtown Waynesville Commission directly. It's incredibly difficult for me to perform that supervision with them across the street. We have to take stuff now and move it across the street and move it back. Currently, she's kind of occupying two big storage spaces because everything's kind of spread out. There's a bunch of stuff over here being stored, and then there's a bunch of stuff in the basement being stored. If we were to take Mr. Hollingshead's office and move it over here, that would put her more adjacent to her direct supervisor, which is me. It would put her more adjacent to all of if you go to the basement, it's the downtown Waynesville Commission's basement. Everything down there is downtown Waynesville Commission, except for the finance room where we keep all the retention records and the HR room where we keep all of the old human resources personnel files. In short, it was my suggestion to move her across the street because I desire closer supervision, and all of her stuff is already over there anyway.
I have some concerns with moving the downtown Waynesville Commission over there. There's a couple. One is, I don't like the fact that the downtown Waynesville Commission, the salary is paid through special tax appropriations. And I feel if you have them in that section, there may be some unintentional, maybe asking them to do things for the town. I like the fact that it's segregated.
Her salary is currently split approximately 80-20 between downtown and general fund balance appropriations so that I can ask her to do stuff outside of the directive of the municipal district.
I didn't think that was the case.
And
That's the way I understood when we created the position. If something's changed and I'm not aware of it. Because the idea was that while Beth and in her job description is special events management in general. And so when we hired Beth, she really took a load off of me in helping to manage some of the special events on the front end. In order to do that successfully, I asked if we could take some of her salaries out of the general fund balance appropriations that are made during the beginning of the fiscal year.
so are you moving the mayor's office as well?
Upstairs in that room is, yes, sir.
So the mayor will be upstairs. And
Yes.
he will reside in what was Chief Hollenhead's.
Beth would occupy Mr. Hollingshead's office. The mayor would occupy the room. We would fix the room where the CPD currently is, the civilian police. The civilian police would move over here on top of the police station into the little room right here. And then the little boardroom, and then Mr. Hollingshead would move into Beth's current office, which is about the same size. But over there, she's got far more storage. And without there being an elevator, there's not a lot of traffic that comes to and out of Beth's office anyway.
Yeah. But Chief Hollingshead having a large office like that, but he's got this office back here is very large and has a storage building. And Chief Hollingshead working with the League of Municipalities does not need an office that big. So I'm just trying to get in my head what the reasonable issue is, that why we're doing all this and planning people in different areas and trying to work through this.
The primary purpose for this move in particular was to have the person that I supervise closer to me and closer to their stuff. I believe Chief Hollingshead's office is almost the same size as that room is now. The only difference is that.
Which he doesn't need an office that big, is what I'm saying.
Right, and so we could move.
Literally, he just sits there on the computer. He needs very little storage.
Right.
I've spoken to him, so that's what I'm saying.
He doesn't have a whole lot of storage. He's got stuff in the basement, but other than that. So that was. The impetus of this was I desired and spoke with the manager about having one of my employees closer to me to supervise, because it's very difficult to do that over the phone with them not in the same building as me. And I'm constantly, especially during event season, carrying. I moved 150 pounds of sandbags 6 times across the street over here, back across the street during event season. It's very difficult.
Is, I find this, request to be perfectly reasonable. I mean, he wants to be closer to his supervisee. So is your concern the amount of space that Bill's gonna have available to him?
I have multiple concerns about this. You're moving someone that's got an elevator here. They can go up and down. Now, you brought sandbags over here.
I brought,
And then they took them back out after you brought them.
I moved the sandbags from over there. That's just an example. I moved hundreds of
From there
pounds
to
of
the
things.
upstairs.
I can move it up, tons of stuff. So the sandbags specifically, I did not carry up the stairs. The sandbags were just a general example of the hundreds of pounds of things that I've carried from over there to over here, or over here, over there.
So now without
And
the
there's an
storage,
ax,
without the storage bill, the storage closet that we've got over here. So it's just gonna add to everybody moving extra stuff.
it would alleviate it because there is, all of her stuff is mostly in the basement anyway. So whenever she needs it, I've got to take it out of the basement and bring it here with her, or she has to bring it somewhere else. There's far more space in the basement. If we go to the basement, the whole floor
Two
is,
simple questions.
yes.
Is there heating and cooling in that office?
No, we'll have to
No.
put in a $20,000 heating.
The
That's
money that
number
was
one.
gonna be used over here was intended to be used.
Is it ADA compliant?
The building upstairs, sans elevator, no. So,
You mentioned
What?
something about the phone system.
phone system would also help because we don't have a lot of human bodies in that building, and whenever anybody wants to leave, it'd be nice to have another person to help answer the phones.
This went back to my concern of if this is special appropriation taxes, that person should be answering the phone.
And I would have to double check, but I'm very confident that a portion of her salary is appropriated from the general fund balance in or around an approximate amount of 20%. And it's worked into her
But
job
they're
description.
required by to have that position 40 hours for Main Street.
They were okay with this. And they understood. I sat down with Karen, with Liz Parham and Sherry when we first hired Beth, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to be using Beth for downtown stuff. Otherwise, I was very transparent. I intend to take part of her salary from the general fund balance appropriation and use it so that I can have her do other things." And they were okay with it.
Is there a way we could have a conversation, just maybe Julia and I try to talk through this instead of having it out?
Okay, so you want to hold off on this move until?
Well, not the move,
No,
but
I'm
I
good
want to go
about the
ahead and
finance
approve.
office. I'm totally 100% on
Yeah,
board
well-
with the finance office.
Well, the
I-
issue,
I
of course,
think so.
that's in the agenda is the finance
Right.
office.
So
So
I think we
mention the move in the
digress.
manager's report, so you have the information you'd have. I think it'd be way out of line for us to just do it.
Yeah.
And that's why I reported in the manager's report.
And where was the civilian police academy moving to?
To the small room, the old Annie chamber that we don't use anymore.
Or wouldn't they be better off in the larger room because they got so much radios and equipment and stuff?
Yeah, the logistics of who would occupy that room in this area, whether or not it's Mr. Hollingshead or the CPD, to me, doesn't really matter. I believe they both make good use of
I
either of
would
those
say
rooms.
the civilian police academy would be better off with what Beth had, because he's hard to hear,
Mhm.
you know. You don't need that large of office, you know, probably. But they would be better off, because I seen what you showed me that was gonna be my office, and it was crammed. So that was crammed with the civilian police academy stuff, so they would be better off in a larger room.
I agree.
That would be my thought. But
I hadn't weighed
But
who would,
before you, we're gonna pass this
Yeah,
over
let's-
there, before you ever get there, please, I ask that you set up a meeting with Julia and Anthony and work this out.
yes, sir.
I
you.
would like to be at least included in those discussions because.
Remember, when you do it, it
We had to
becomes a
do
public
two,
meeting.
so
I understand.
we'll work it out. We'll work it out.
Okay,
That being said, I would like to make a motion to approve the bid for $131,343.71 for PBI for renovations of the old boardroom in the finance fire department and reject the bid for renovations of the second floor office space. And the town hall approve a $35,000 budget for furnishing space.
Okay. Got a motion? Need a second? Second, Chuck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, show like sign. And I gave up my office, guys. That was my agreement with, the human resource office. Because no more than I'm in there using it, it's better use with her. So I worked that out with her, and actually that office was the human resource office to begin with, so I was in agreement with Rob and Jesse. I talked with him about that, and you can put me anywhere. I have no problem with it.
And for the record, so you'll know where I stand, I think probably this move is probably, I mean, of course, there sounds like there's some things to be worked out, and the ADA portion of it is somewhat troublesome. Of course, the
Very
civilian
critical,
police
yes.
academy was operating in a place that was not ADA compliant either. And I noticed one of them here the other day with on a walk.
Yeah.
That's Hill Buddy, but that's a different than the downtown commission.
Okay, we'll move on then to communication from staff. Rob, you have anything for us tonight?
I just would mention to you that was contacted about the enabling legislation for appointment to the TDA board. And I checked the enabling legislation, and it states that the town should provide 2 names to the county commissioners. I called the county just to see if this is something that was correct. Maybe I was looking at the wrong legislation, and they said no, that was the case. I'll leave that up to you as to whether you want to comply or not.
I'm looking at the email you sent Bryant, and it says, we appear to have 2 candidates interested in the TDA board seat. If there is another candidate on this council that wants the TDA board seat, then by all means, take the board seat.
Still think you have to submit 2 names.
Well, John, I nominated you to take that seat, and which you were most graciously said you would do it. But if we need to send up another candidate, and then I think that's kind of what I read from Rob's email, is that we've got to send 2 up, 2 names. Did I read that right, Rob?
And that's fine, but what I'm saying is that Rob said there are 2 candidates interested in the seat. And I was not aware of that. And so all I'm saying is that if there are 2 and the other person wants the seat, then he can have it, or she can have it.
Okay.
I think we have to send 2 up, and then the county commissioners.
I'll be glad to make another nomination. I mean, I nominated John, but I'll be glad to do
Okay.
a second nomination.
Okay,
And then-
so all I'm saying is that if there are 2, I don't want to be one of the 2.
You don't want to be one of them.
I do not want to be one of the 2. I'm fine to be the represent the council on the board, but if it's a situation where somebody else wants it, then take it.
Chuck, wasn't you interested?
Well,
Also?
sure, I mentioned that the last time we were here, but the thing is, we need to nominate 2 people.
Okay.
To the board, and I'd be glad to be nominated, but
Okay, does anyone would like to nominate? Chuck?
I stand by my nomination for John. And then if we have to have a second candidate, then I would nominate Councilman Dixon for that.
Okay.
But I don't want to lose John either, so.
Okay. Okay, so you got, all right, you have a second? All in favor, say aye for the two members being appointed to that position.
Aye.
Opposed?
Did you want to remove your name, Tom?
Okay, so you submit those two names too. Okay, all right. You have anything else?
No, sir.
What's that?
All right, Ms. Town Attorney, you have anything for us tonight?
No.
Nothing, okay. Okay, we'll move on to, communications from our council and myself. I'm just wondering, about this deal, now we're taking down that sound box up there, that's coming down. Okay.
The what?
The information that we got back from Patrick's office says, puts us on hold, and we've been on hold for 10
No.
years about this.
Got their own building.
Yeah, so the partition action is going on with Sutton Garage next door. We are not on hold with Sandbox.
No, that's what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
I'm talking about Sutton's.
So,
Well,
no,
we do not have a current condemnation action.
with
but-
Sutton.
Can we still go ahead and do a condemnation action, even though, because this is just gonna drag on again? I've had people calling me and still fussing at me, say, you guys ain't gonna do anything about cleaning that up.
So
Can-
there,
Can we just talk about one at a time? So can we talk about Sambos first?
It's
Sambos,
done.
yeah.
Sambos
It's done.
is being
It's done.
done. It's gonna happen.
the condemnation is pending. The current, I think we have one family member who stepped forward who was interested in trying to catch up and clean up the property. I don't have a status report on that, but the vote you passed, I think it was last November. That
Gave them
60 days.
60 days is
That
coming up.
60-day timeline is gonna run, and I think that code enforcement is ready to proceed with the demolition if the family does not make a genuine good faith effort to follow through on their representations.
And they have it, and so they're
Well,
all,
no, but we're ready. That's why you went ahead with the vote.
yeah.
So that way code enforcement can move if there's not any legitimate effort on behalf of the property owner to avoid it.
Well, I know about that because they're already up there tearing that building down. My concern is about the Sutton property.
Right, so code enforcement who reached out to the various heirs and started the process of the warnings and the warnings and the warnings. They received communication from counsel for one of the heirs that are in the partition proceeding. They have a buyer ready. They're just, the court process grinds slow and fine.
So they are a buyer.
So
already?
the attorneys for the heirs specifically asked the town hold back on any potential code enforcement action until they can get the partition sale
Okay,
completed.
okay.
Now, we have advised them, they gotta move the cars. So they've gotta move the cars off of Sam Bob's lot in order for us to proceed with the demolition of that property. So some of the cars are gonna be moving soon, come hell or high water, whether Dole Sutton does it or whether the town of Waynesville does it. So we've let them know that they have a deadline to get the cars off the Sam Bob's lot.
And do we know that they,
I don't have it in my memory bank, but I think David
Soon.
or Elizabeth can advise you of their plans to a date certain.
The cars are off Sandbox lot. They already moved all.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's good. So we're good to go on Sandbox
Yeah,
as soon as the
yeah.
60-day notice period
Yeah.
finishes up.
Yeah.
It'll be up to Elizabeth and her staff on when to move and how quickly they can schedule all that, because I'm
Yeah.
sure it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
Um,
They
but
got,
that's the reason why the Sutton property is sort of in, the town staff certainly would prefer to make other people pay for cleaning up the property than for the town to have to pay all of the towing costs and the demolition expenses if we think that there's a legitimate chance that a third-party purchaser will be
but
responsible.
what you're telling me, the Sutton property was sold.
They have a buyer on the line. It's still in partition, so the partition action was filed fairly recently.
Yeah.
They're working their way towards a resolution, but they aren't quite there yet. And so the attorneys for the parties in the partition asked specifically that the town give them enough time to get the case moved through the system, get the sale completed, rather than demolishing the property and potentially ruining, a third party purchaser, which is what we want.
The partition action, what does that mean?
Partition is a proceeding in North Carolina whereby people who own property together, those are called co-tenants,
And I think there's six
There's
in this
like
case.
6 people on board.
can force,
Four in this case.
force either a division or a sale. So there's partition in kind, which is actually drawing a line down the middle of the property and giving everybody an equal share. Then there's partition by sale, which is usually what happens these days because you don't typically get huge tracts of land that you can carve up into 3 or
6
4
pieces.
or 6 different pieces. And that's what's going on with Sutton's garage down here on South Main. It's too small for them to divide up an equal piece for each of the heirs. So they've done a partition by sale. So they are going through the motions of, it's a way of forcing people to move on.
And then they'll divide the cash.
And then they'll divide the cash, yes.
And do we know anything about the buyer that's on the line in what
I just very briefly saw some emails between Elizabeth and the attorneys, stepped in to clarify, no, we're just telling you to get the cars off Sam Bob's. You're gonna have to worry about the cars on your lot, but we're not coming for them yet. But other than that, I know very little about the actual details of where everybody is.
So my concern would, and perhaps, and maybe even likely, is neither here nor there, but we've dealt with that problem for
15
decades now.
years.
And so I hate, if there is a potential resolution on the horizon, I'd hate to see if it just somebody who was going to do the same thing with it that's there now. So anyway, that was my reason for asking the question. But and like I said, it may not be here or there, but
Well, and he's one of, I mean, I think that there's enough heirs that every attorney in town who does this kind of thing's involved. But, I'm probably the worst person to give you a detailed update on this because I only know the 4 or 5 emails I've seen. I'll make a note to tell Elizabeth and David that y'all were really interested in understanding where they are in the process on this. And maybe we can get them to come and give you a report at the next meeting.
Yeah.
And and certainly by then the deadline will pass that David can tell you one way or the other what they're doing about Sam Bob's.
Oh, yeah, Sam Bob's is coming down. They already got that approved.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Unless something happened that I
That's
don't know
correct.
about.
Yeah, exactly. If one of the family member come through and, did everything he promised for the first and only time, maybe David will have some good news in that score so the town can afford expense.
Okay.
But otherwise, they'll be the ones who can actually give you details on
Sure.
what they're doing.
If you have something down.
Yeah, I don't know much more than anybody else, but I think your concerns are all valid. There's none that it may not happen. Things may not be good. However, it does appear that things are moving. The partition to sell the property is good. It means, it's moving in the right direction. And I agree that we don't need to do anything about
Okay. All right. As long as everyone's good, but
it. But it's moving along for the first time.
okay. If not, then I would ask that some period of time we put a time, out there. But I'm good if you feel like, that there is someone pursuing about buying it, and hopefully that person will be, like John said, not somebody that's going to communicate stuff back there and pile up again, and it'll be someone that'll clean up. That's my hopes. That's all I can think of tonight that I have a question about. We'll start on this end. Actually, you have anything?
Yeah, I do. And I appreciate everyone giving me the time to say this one thing, and bear with me while I try to get through it. As some of you might have known, Melissa McDevitt who was Tom and Maggie's daughter, went missing, and they found her body after 362 days of searching for her. They found her in British Columbia. Her body was returned to the family, and she was laid to rest today in Virginia. And I just wanted to take a moment to say that what pain that family felt, and that I'm glad that they got peace. But that being said, I received an email from Tom, and one of the things that he said is that Melissa will be remembered locally in Haywood County once the Waynesville Arch on Main Street for the gateway to the Great Smokies. And thank you, John, for all your work is erected in the spring. Melissa's memorial plaque will be prominently displayed for locals and visitors alike to know what an extraordinary person she was. So thank you, John, for working on that, and thank the McDevitt's for, I know that they made a very substantial contribution to that.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful way to remember Melissa.
I agree. It's gonna be, I'm thankful that, we're able to honor her memory. And do the arch as well, so I've read that, I don't remember which paper it was in,
It was
but I
in the
read
newspaper.
that.
Smoky Mountain News.
Yeah.
You've
And it
been the
was-
Mountaineer. Yes.
I'd known a little bit of the story, but not all of the details, so it was heartbreaking.
Very much so. How was she?
She in her 30s.
She was 30.
My heart broke for Tom because he spent many hours trekking through the woods.
Can't imagine.
For sure.
She was a wonderful person. She'll be remembered in our hearts.
Did you know her?
Yes.
John, you have anything?
No, sir.
Julie?
No, sir.
Joe?
Yeah, a couple things, or a few things. Anthony and I interviewed Travis Collins, yesterday for the, planning board, and I can say we have an excellent candidate. Probably many of you know him. He was the principal of Tuscola for 4 years.
Nice guy.
Principal of the year while he was there. He's the principal at Irwin, Middle School right now, but it's talking about maybe retiring in a few years. He lives right down on Boyd Avenue, right above Annabelle's.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, he will be an excellent member. So I moved that we appoint him to the plan.
That was the next question. We go ahead. All right, we got a motion.
As long as everyone
Second.
agrees.
And I'll second that.
Say, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, show light
All
sign.
right, that's great. And we told him we were going to get.
Okay.
But of course, you'll notify.
All right.
But I really, he will be excellent.
Oh, yeah.
Really. I just want to report on just a few things. I went to the Land of the Sky Clean Vehicles Coalition Awards last week. And it was good. I met and talked to the officers for the town of Weaverville. They had electric vehicles. And so that was nice, and a few other things. But and also, and just this week, myself and 4 members of the ESB, Environmental Sustainability Board, met with George Santucci. He is the sustainability manager for the town of Boone. And we spent a long time talking with him, so got some great ideas. It's really interesting. Boone is a very similar town does. They have twice as many residents, and of course have another 20,000 in the
University.
students. But as far as staff goes, it's almost identical. Our staff, as far as administrative staff. So, anyway, we got some good ideas from him. This coming Monday at 1 o'clock at the Public Services office, and if any of you are available, the National Fire Protection Association and the Clean Cities Coalition and Land of the Sky EV folks are putting on a program ready for EVs. I know several members of the town are coming to public works folks and fire departments and some folks. So we're going to go to that. They'll have some electric vehicles available after the 2-hour presentation. Oh, and I did want to ask one thing. And all it needs is a yes or no answer. Were we able to take care of the Auburn Road leaves? Auburn Road? Yes. Okay.
I mean, I drove past them and didn't see many.
Okay, that's wonderful. Oh, yeah. Gary and Rob and I went to the council government meeting, and I know that we can't all go to all the meetings, but it was really good. Presentation by the TDA this time with the consultants coming in, Shelley White, and it was in the new health services, health and science, the nursing building.
The human
It's the
services.
Phyllis Prevost.
Right, the Prevo building, yeah. But it was good, so I just encourage everybody to go. It's always good.
It was a good meeting.
Folks that,
Yeah, it was a very good meeting.
that we see. And we talked with Russ Harris, who is chair of the Southwestern Commission, and he's requesting that we at least have someone come to their meetings, which I think are about 5 or 6 a year. And I told him I'd be glad to come to those. I don't know that we need an official representative necessarily, Rob.
Don't we usually have an appointment for that?
You haven't since I've been here, but Russ gave me the impression that each of these municipalities has an appointed representative.
Zeb does, Ken.
Yeah, he's been the chairman of the
Yeah,
Southwest.
he's the chair.
Right. Yeah, and I looked at the website. It's a little old.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
If you would look
Exactly.
into that and see if it's.
With
if we
your
need to appoint
permission, I'll be glad to go to the next meeting and see what's going on too.
You'd be glad to volunteer to be on the appointment.
I will. I'm getting pretty busy.
Now
So-
that you're retired, you're
Yeah.
very busy.
Well, it's hard for all of you. You work, well, it's hard, especially
hard-
daytime.
Yeah, the hard thing about that, it's always the Monday before our meeting, our Tuesday meeting, it's always that Monday. And so I told Russ, a lot of problem with us is we study before our meetings. And it's kind of difficult to try to make those, but unless you're retired like Joe.
Yeah.
You know,
We'll see
Yeah.
how long this lasts.
Yeah.
I don't mean the retirement, I mean
yeah.
going to these things.
I never know what part of the country I'm gonna be in.
So far, and one more thing, I was just looking today, we were way behind on our minutes for the Downtown Waynesville Commission, the Planning Board, and especially the Board of Zoning Adjustment. There isn't anything for the last year. I didn't think you did. Your minutes are up to date, so if someone could look into that. That would be
I know that's for help.
Mhm. That'd be wonderful, thanks.
Okay.
That's it.
All
Sorry.
right, then, if there's no more,
I move to go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A5 to establish or instruct the public body staff and negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken on behalf of the public body in negotiating the price and other material terms of the contract or post contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease, or the amount of compensation and other material terms of an employment contract or proposed employment.
Second.
got a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
And Becky will want to know whether
Thank y'all
we
so much.
anticipate any action when we come out.
No.
You know,